This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mike Frieden, North Haven's first Selectman, and welcome to our October Board of Selectmen meeting. I'm joined, as always, by our second Selectman, Mr. William Piper, and our third Selectwoman, Ms. Sally Buemi. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to ask everyone to stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item number 2, is there any public comment to our agenda this evening?
I have one comment. The in bond releases, the third one on the second page, I-1902, it says 222 Ridge Road. I'll make a motion to amend the agenda. That should read 2222 Ridge Road. According to the bond release package from land use, it's
Very good.
2222 is,
All right.
isn't that the beginning of the name of the street, I think, Ridge Road? We all call it Ridge Road 2222. So when I saw 222, I'm like, that can't be right. So I'll make a motion to amend that to have 4 2s instead of 3.
Okay. So we have a motion. Bill?
I'll make a motion.
Oh, no,
Or second that motion, rather.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on that item? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. All right. Any other public comment to the agenda? All right, item number 3, approval of the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from September 5th, 2019.
I had a proposed addition to the minutes, and it has to do with page, excuse me, just 1 second, please. Page 2, on page 2 of the minutes from September 5th, there's several resolutions that we acted on, and the one on the bottom of the page regarding the amendment to the Article 5 of the Finance Office for the threshold for the 25,000. Sometimes our minutes do reflect some details about discussion before we just make our vote. So I had proposed an addition to the minutes, and your executive assistant, Val Goodkin, advised me to make the request at the meeting. So I'm going to add that this be made. I'm going to read it, and then I'll explain why. This is again on the bottom resolution on page 2 of the minutes. Prior to the vote on this resolution, Ms. Buemi stated that this amendment came before a special town meeting in March of 2019, and it passed by a 4-3 vote. However, subsequently, at a Board of Finance meeting, a town citizen, Nancy Barrett, pointed out some procedural issues, causing the Board of Finance to re-vote on its recommendation, and now the amendment must come before a town meeting again. Ms. Buemi further stated that citizens who speak at public meetings can make a difference, and she urged citizens to come to future meetings and participate. The reason I would like this added is threefold. One, if someone were to sit down one day and read all of the minutes of the year of 2019, they would see that we already had a town meeting on this exact amendment and might wonder why we were voting on it again. And these minutes in their current form doesn't explain that. So the first 2 sentences of my addition explain why we're voting again. And the second reason is I think it's an example of how I think, and I'm sure you think, Mike and Bill, that people who come to the microphone can make a difference. And we all want to urge people to come to meetings and participate. So I saw it not only as a correction to clarify why we're voting again at a town meeting, the same exact amendment, but also as a way to inspire people that that citizens can make a difference. So I respectfully request that those 3 sentences be added prior to our actual vote on the resolution, which we all voted unanimously in favor of. So I would make a motion to amend the minutes to reflect my statement that I read for those reasons.
I think maybe we should have, I think from a discussion standpoint, there are a lot of things that we say that I think don't get into the minutes verbatim. I think they may be summarized or may be contained, I think, elsewhere. And I think, and again, I think part of the reason the minutes are only a summary is because that kind of detail can't be contained usually in the minutes. I think that's why you have the ability to go and see the whole tape meeting online if somebody actually wants to see the detail. And I think some of these things are actually maybe contained in the minutes of other committees or in the special town meeting based on when these things were discussed. So I hate to depart from a procedural standpoint or a process standpoint to start looking for specific more verbatim types of quotations than we've ever had or contained in the minutes, because that's not been the intention of the minutes. I think the intention has been one of summary and synopsis, but not of necessarily specific or direct detail, which there have been plenty of other occasions where I think you said, Mike said, and maybe even myself have said quotable things. Maybe not me, but at least both of you. So, it just seems like a departure from our normal procedure and process. And, and I do respect, what you're saying. But I think clearly some of those things were discussed at the Board of Finance and at the special town meeting, which, people have the opportunity, if they ever really wanted to see that or in the detail, would see it there.
Right. Well, for one thing, I understand what you say, they could watch the video. We're not, there's no requirement, the minutes are required by Freedom of Information Act to be kept as a permanent record of town history. Who knows if the audios, the tapes will ever be kept as a formal history. And I can think of many situations where we have discussed resolutions where detail, either by myself or Mr. Frida or Mr. Doheny prior to you, have been included. I thought that it was important because it was such an unusual situation where we had a town meeting and voted on it, and it passed at the town meeting in March 25th of 2019. And then we're voting on the exact same amendment again, or without an explanation in the minutes. It just seemed appropriate, so that's why I thought it was important. And then the second part was, again, I've always been urging people, and Mr. Frida has as well, to come forward to our meetings and participate, and this was an example of that. So with due respect to your comments, the written minutes are the official, by statute, formal history of what happens at the Board of Selectmen meeting. And it's such an unusual thing to have another town meeting on the same amendment. I thought that it was worthy of mentioning. And so I'll again make my motion to add this statement to the minutes.
Yeah, so, without actually maybe seeing the statement and going back and looking at the tape, I'd have to have some concerns about whether.
I know I said a lot too during that discussion, and we could then get into a situation where we're adding narratives to minutes when by FOI it's not required. So
right. But
I'm hesitant. I agree with Bill on this. I'm hesitant to start adjusting minutes. Everything is transparent here.
Yeah.
Years ago, the public comment wasn't even televised. Now it's televised. It's all archived on NHTV, and we televise the meetings live. So
right. In my almost 6 years on the Board of Selectmen, this is probably I would give a fair estimate that this is maybe the 6th or 7th time that I've requested an addition or change in the minutes, and they've always been granted because for clarification purposes, or I wanted something specific that I said at the meeting to be included as part of the historical fact. And they were always, I can't remember one time when it was not added. But if for some reason you don't think it's important to include an explanation of an unusual situation, which is another town meeting to vote on the same exact amendment, that's your choice. But, I'll make the motion again to add my statement, or we could table it so that Bill could have the opportunity to watch the meeting to verify that my statement accurately reflects what I said. I did so, and I believe my statement accurately reflects what I said. Again, I'll make my motion to include my.
Feedback on that.
Did I
See, I think
see somebody's in my?
I think somebody has spoken one way or the
Somebody
other.
wants it or doesn't
Somebody's
want it.
objecting
Or
somebody's
supporting me, I don't know which
We
one.
don't know how to read that, so.
I don't want to spend too much time, we have other things on it.
Yeah.
I'm making my motion to add this, as you know.
I don't know what that was.
We're taking a technical break here.
Should be fine now. Yeah, I was just, all of a sudden it just kind of did that. Not sure why.
Okay, all right.
So I'll proceed with my motion to add my sentences to the minutes. As you know, a motion doesn't need to be seconded to be acted on, so I'll make my motion.
And I don't think it's a great idea tabling it or pushing the minutes off for
Right.
another meeting.
No,
So
okay.
I feel pretty strongly that even that maybe is not a fair discussion of the topic, which, if somebody really wants to see that topic, they should really go to the special town meeting.
Okay,
So
All right. No second.
I don't feel comfortable maybe making the change at
okay.
this time.
Well, you can call for a vote on my motion, please.
I'll call for a vote on it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye. Nay. Nay.
Okay.
Got used to voting nay.
But keep
Nay.
this in mind.
Yeah.
Your position's already on TV, so you've clearly
Okay.
illustrated your position. Bill and I happen to disagree with you on this particular issue.
All right, well, I'll be watching carefully in future minutes to make sure no other extraneous statements that support one matter or another are included then.
So since you read it tonight, are you
Yes.
going to ask that we put it in the minutes next time too, or no?
No. I would hope that you would think you know me a little bit better than
I just tried
that.
to get you to chuckle a little.
Again, this was the first time my request for an addition to minutes has been denied, so it's, my motion has been voted down, so we could move on to
Okay,
the approval of the minutes.
all right. We're going to bypass item number 4 tonight.
You have to do number 3.
Number 3, I'm sorry. Approval of the minutes of the Board of Selectmen meeting of September 5th, 2019. All right, so.
I'll make a motion to approve those
All
minutes.
right. I'll second the motion. We'll call for any other discussion. All right, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay, okay. All right, we've memorialized that.
Thank you.
We will bypass number 4 because I'm going to wait till next month's meeting with some hopefully very important updates on the economic development side. So we're going to get right into item number 5. And Sally, I'll ask you to read item number 5.
Sure. Number 5 is to consider and vote upon whether to authorize the first selectman, Michael J. Frieda, to execute a purchase and sale agreement with Edward M. and Teresa O. Yates in connection with the purchase of certain real property known as 3022 Ridge Road, North Haven, by the town of North Haven, which real property is being acquired by the town for permitted open space use.
Okay, so I've invited Ms. Lynn Sadowski here tonight. We're also joined by the chairman of our Open Space Committee, Mr. Stephen Fitzgerald. And approximately 4 or 5 years ago, we recommissioned the Open Space Committee. So, Lynn, if you would address our Board of Selectmen.
Lynn Sadowski, Director of Public Works. What we have before you is a request for support of our purchasing what we started out as 3030 Ridge Road. We met with the property owners, Edward and Terry Yates, back in October of 2017. Laura Magarassi, our zoning enforcement officer, and I walked the property. At the time, he was interested in selling us about 10.3 acres of land. We sat down with them in January of 18. Jonathan Bodwell, then the town engineer, along with Alan Frederickson, Laura, and I, and we talked to them about possible requirements to subdivide the land because they had already had a first cut for subdivision. We moved forward with appraisals, independent appraisals, in February of 2018, and by the end of March, beginning of April, we had appraisals of the property, both for the 10.3 acres of land and the 14.7. At that time, the Yates had decided that they wished to sell the town 14.7 acres of land for the appraised value, which came back at exactly $400,000 from each of the independent appraisers. We went through a variety of discussions. We met with our chairman for Open Space Advisory Commission, Steve Fitzgerald, and our committee, and everybody came back with a unanimous support. That was June 6th of 18. June 25th, 2018, a special town meeting was held to approve the fundings for capital bonding for open space. And by February of this year, we were sitting down with Mr. Yates and Mr. and Mrs. Yates again, saying that we had determined a subdivision application would be required if they wished to move forward and sell us the property. By June, we had hired Malone McBroom, and in front of you, you have a plan of what the property looks like. And Malone McBroom did their A2 survey. So we went to Malone McBroom and we negotiated a price to map the inland wetlands, survey the area, and appear at both the Inland Wetlands Commission meeting, which was in July of this year, the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, which was in August 5th. Inland Wetlands gave us a subdivision approval and moved us to Planning and Zoning. Planning and Zoning gave us a subdivision approval, and in September 9th, I went back to Planning and Zoning for a Section 8-24 referral, and that referral gets me to your Board of Selectmen. And so I appear before you, along with Stephen Fitzgerald, our chairman, for support of the application and the purchase of 14.7 acres of land from Edward and Terry Yates, and also to pay 1/2 the cost of the fees associated with Malone and McBroom, who provided support during inland wetlands and planning and zoning commissions, and the mapping of inland wetlands and putting together the subdivision maps. And Steve, would you like to say something?
Sure. Stephen Fitzgerald, River Road. I am the first Selectman's appointee to our town's Open Space Advisory Commission and chair of that commission. And I'm here to say that our commission has, as you've heard, unanimously supported the acquisition of this particular parcel as open space for town. I'm personally excited about this particular parcel for probably two primary reasons, one of which is it is a beautiful piece of land that could be a significant asset to the town's now, I'm happy to say, growing list of open space properties in town. And second of all, I think it's also a good acquisition because it happens to be in a part of town where development, of course, is always a risk. And I've spoken many times before about the benefits to the town in preserving open space as opposed to allowing all of the sort of limited open space that's available in town being subject to development. So this parcel in particular and the growing list of open space that's being acquired by the town is, in my view, really just a great asset for the town, and I would strongly encourage the board to support the resolution to acquire this parcel. Thank you.
Lynn, would you like to talk about the Blue Book appraisals at all?
Sure. We hired two independent appraisers, Amodio Associates and Ed Visra, which is Al Frankie, and both of those individuals they appraised the value of the 14.7 acres at $400,000. And our process has been that we average the two independent appraisals, and that's where we come up with the value of the land. And so that was part of the discussions with the Yates family, because obviously the price is not as high as some would want for their property. And it is a beautiful piece of property. Many of us have already walked it. So, we're looking at, purchasing the property for $400,000 if your board approves it, and also to pay half of the cost for Malone and McBroom.
Any questions?
And at some point, would you envision people being able to, just like you were able to walk, looks like
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a pond on
Yep.
the property?
Oh, it's spectacular. Yep. And what's really nice about the 14.7 acres that they agreed to sell us is that there's 200 feet of frontage along Ridge Road. So I would think someday, if we were to get some, town-dedicated funding to create an area to park, pull off a Ridge Road, that folks would have access. They have access anyway once we purchase the land, because it's open to anybody.
There's like a dirt path that's on the end of the property line. Where does that dirt path go to?
It's actually horse trails, and it goes, behind it is Quinnipiac University property, so
Okay,
there's
so-
property behind that. Yeah, it goes behind a couple of the other properties on Ridge Road, like 3012, 3014, and it's a really nice piece of land.
I tried to look on Google Maps at it today, and based on the address, and
Yeah.
it was exactly, it wasn't as good as this map to be able to actually see what
Yeah,
the 14 acres look like.
And Bill, we started as, calling it 3030 Ridge Road, but once we subdivided it, it became 3022 as assigned by the assessor. So we're taking 3022, while 3030 will be left to the Yates, which is where their home is.
We can't have the 50 square feet in Hamden, or not?
No, actually, we already amended the map, and it's going to the abutter, which is Quinnipiac University. They're taking it, yeah.
Sally, any questions?
Yeah, I have some. First, it's regarding the Open Space Advisory Committee unanimously supporting this. When was that? When was the last time they met, and when did they vote to support it?
So we voted as a committee, Sally, on June 6th of 2018 is when we voted to support it, the 14.7 acres.
Was that voting to add it? I remember there was a list of
Yeah.
about 10 properties that were targeted to.
Exactly, yep,
So-
voting to get that on the list and start.
Okay, so this particular deal
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily approved?
No, no.
But
And-
the property was approved as a target property?
That's exactly
I just
true.
wanted to
Yep.
clarify that, because I don't think, I hadn't thought the advisory committee had met in quite a while.
Yeah, we've, the last time we met was April,
Okay,
yeah. But we do make recommendations to the selectmen's office, and then we
Right.
discuss, and we always say to the property owners, there's a long process.
Right, yeah,
Sometimes
of
it
course.
requires a subdivision, but it always requires planning and zoning referral to this board. So nothing is done until
So
the ink is
the-
dry.
I got you.
Yeah.
So the unanimous support reference was to the board supporting adding this property
Yep.
to
And making a
that
recommendation.
original list of
Correct.
target properties. I remember that list very well.
Yeah.
And we've bought several of them now.
Yeah.
How do you compare this price per acre to others that we've purchased?
They're all different.
It's apples and
Yeah, I
oranges,
mean,
yeah.
if you think about, we spent $447, but we had a grant for almost 50% of that.
Mm-hmm.
$447 for 30 acres over on Hartford Turnpike and Kings Highway. We spent, I want to say,
That was the Centaway?
Right.
yes, in
Yeah,
a way,
right,
yeah. And then
okay.
we purchased a little bit, I want to say for maybe under $300,000, we purchased 603 Middletown Avenue, and that was like 14 acres or 12.3 acres, I can't remember exactly, but yeah, so it's value, which is why we bring in the two independent appraisers, because
no, I
they need to
understand.
tell us in the Ridge Road area what is the value,
Mm-hmm.
and it's highly valued as far as compared to the other properties that we've purchased.
And
Per
my other
acre.
question is about the credit that the town is getting for half the cost of the M&M's
Mm-hmm.
engineering services, but it's not to exceed 2,500. Do you know if their invoice is much over 5,000 because
It is not. No, we actually have paid them the
Okay.
5,000, and we will, the purchase is contingent on them, your approval as a board.
Right.
And then we would deduct the 2,500 from the
From the price.
400,000.
Right,
Yeah.
but from the way the contract read, it was hard to discern
Yeah.
whether or not the invoice was, because anything over 5,000, the town would have been responsible for
Well,
solely.
you would have to, on all of our purchase orders, it states that you'd have to have the approval of the finance director.
Right.
So if they were requesting additional funds, I would have had to get a change order for that.
Okay, so.
So we're at 5,000.
I just wanted to make sure, because
Sure.
it was,
Yeah.
when you see not to exceed, well, what happens
Right,
if it
yeah,
exceeds?
right,
That's
yeah.
just how I think.
No, I'm with you.
And the other question I had is sometimes when we've had these, the proposed deed was before us. I could remember some other properties, and there were covenants in there, restrictive language, obligations of the town, be it maintenance and whatnot. And I could remember myself and at the time, Selectman Dahany having some concerns about some of the wording of that.
That was for a grant application.
Yeah, but there was
Yeah.
a couple of different, so the reason why I'm asking is these folks, and of course, we very much appreciate the Yates being willing to sell this to us, and I'm supportive of this, but whenever you see the sellers, they're maintaining their house there, and I'm just wondering if the deed ultimately will have any covenants regarding maintenance, or I can remember one of the properties, I don't know if it was Valentino or not, there was a question about whether there could be a parking lot, because you mentioned how we have frontage, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Because some of our open space was not, we didn't have frontage on a road.
Yes, well, 603 has a 50-foot.
50-foot right-of-way,
50-foot
that's right.
right-of-way, whereas this has 200 feet.
Right, where you
We
could-
don't have any specific covenants on this, other than we have told the Yates family that once we purchase it as open space, anyone has access to it. You know, they
Okay.
can't prohibit it.
Right, because there's been others where I saw in the deed some restrictive language that both myself and the second selectman at the time had some issues with.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember. And so it's hard, again, with just this sort of naked purchase and sale agreement that's been provided to determine anything like that. But you're saying
Not that I'm
there
aware
won't
of,
be
yeah,
any
and our
restrictions.
town council has
Right.
reviewed that, and they've prepared the purchase and sales agreement. I know that one of the things we were concerned about with the Kings Highway and Hartford Turnpike one, if you remember, is there was an old cell tower approval, but it was never enacted upon, and then it was, people were like, whoa, wait, is there a cell tower up there? And because it came up during the title search. But
Right.
this doesn't have anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. But, and like I said, there was another property that had significant frontage on a road with a possibility of a parking lot, and there was some issue about whether that was going to be allowed. You know, because if we're going to perhaps make a park here, you know, where people could go, they need to
They'll need access. yeah.
park, yeah. But, so you don't see any problems
No,
with any restrictive language that would prevent us from
No.
in the future having a facility like that to maximize the use of our citizens, because that's, I mean, the benefit primarily of open spaces, as you've articulated many times, is to try to curtail development, but also we want to encourage the use of the property by our citizens, whether it's walking trails or bird watching or picnicking or whatever.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that
It's passive
those potential
recreation for
uses are
everybody.
going to be possible.
Yep.
And there won't be some of that restrictive language that myself and the former
Not that I'm
second
aware of,
selectman had.
there wasn't any, no. I mean,
Okay.
when we looked at 3600 Ridge,
Mm-hmm.
which was the Grice property, that was one of the, they wanted to sell a conservation easement to us. It had a lot of restrictions to it, and, you know.
That's why we walked away.
That's why we walked
Mm. Right.
away
For the
from it.
exact same
Yeah.
reason you're talking about, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would think though too, like that for those restrictions to make it to the deed, it'd have to be in the purchase agreement. Because, I mean, it'd have to spring from someplace. You know,
Well-
I mean, to have it be put into the deed, you know, it would have had to be agreed to in the purchase agreement, which we haven't had any.
Right, but this also makes reference to Schedule A, which isn't attached, and it could be in there. So,
Yeah, not that I'm
that's-
aware of,
that's
Sally.
why-
Well, I thought the map was Schedule A too as well, or contained in Schedule A.
no, Schedule A would be the legal description, and sometimes
Yeah.
there's been contracts where the legal description had conditions. I just want to, I'm just trying to
That's
maximize, I'm in favor of this, I'm going to vote to support it, but I just want to make sure that we're getting the best potential in the future for our
Get to
money.
see do we normally get to see the deed, or is that?
Oh, yeah.
We have in the
To Sally's-
past.
To Sally's point, we'll end up seeing the deed eventually.
Oh, yeah.
Because I remember one restriction, they said no music, you couldn't play music,
Yeah,
and Tim and I were concerned, what if somebody wanted to strum on their guitar or something,
That's
at a
passive.
picnic?
Yeah, right.
We don't want,
Yeah.
a rock concert. I don't think the Yates want to, but on their 14 acres.
It was
But-
the 50th year of Woodstock, by the way.
That's
so-
right, so who knows? No, you can, but I don't know if you remember the guitar discussion, I do.
You had visions of Purple Haze being played?
I
or
don't
what?
know, okay, so you don't foresee any of these restrictions that we had on other properties that we had
I
to
do
kind
not.
of negotiate a little bit? No, okay. I hope you understand my perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to thank Lynn. She's done a remarkable job for myself and Val in my office, working with Steve, who's done a tremendous job as chairperson, with this whole open space committee. So this is a project that we have so much confidence in Lynn's ability to manage for us, along working with Stephen. We appreciate everything you do, Lynn, for us behind the scenes on this, because it makes it a lot easier for us, because we know it's in capable hands with you and Stephen. Thank you. All right, so then, do we have a motion to accept? Oh, we have to read the resolution.
I would like to likewise say my great confidence in the Public Works Director as well, and I don't think she is interpreting my questions as any doubts
No,
of that.
no, not at all.
I thought my questions were reasonable, but I agree with you. She's done a fabulous job, and I'm happy with all of the purchases. So you want to go back to the
Resolution.
also, I'll read number 6, and I will make a motion resolved that the first selectman, Michael J. Frieda, is authorized to execute a purchase and sale agreement with Edward M. and Teresa O. Yates in connection with the purchase of certain real property known as 3022 Ridge Road, North Haven, by the town of North Haven. So I will move that resolution as read.
I'll second
All right.
Sally's motion.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Great job, Lynn. Stephen, thank you. All right, Bill, I'm going to turn over item number 7 to you.
Thank you, Michael. First, under item number 7, which is resignation and appointments, is the resignation of Stephen Nugent, 335 Kings Highway, North Haven, Connecticut, from the Inland Wetlands Commission, term to expire December 31st, 2019.
Stephen served a long time on this commission, and he's actually leaving. I believe he's going to Vienna for a couple of years, so he has tendered his resignation. So can I have a motion to accept this resignation?
I'll motion to accept Stephen's resignation.
All right, is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second, and I would also like to comment on Mr. Nugent for 2 reasons. I went to kindergarten with him and known him for a few years, and he did serve many years on inland wetlands, a very challenging commission, and I know he was very active with the Historical Society as well.
Yes, he was.
And a great North Havener, and I hope he'll be back, and we wish him well in Vienna. So I will second the motion to accept his resignation with regret.
All right, and under discussion, I'd like to say, Stephen, if you're watching, thank you very much for your years of service on this commission, and also, to Sally's point, on the Historical Society, and all the help you gave us in our office with the Historical Society. So, any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And then I will move to accept the resignation of Edward M. Homa, 7 Colette Street, North Haven, Connecticut, from the Planning and Zoning Commission as an alternate, term to expire December 1st, 2021.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
In discussion, I'd like to thank Ed for all the years he served as alternate on this commission. And Ed, thank you very much. was a lot of years you served, and we thank you very much for that service. So, any other discussion?
Many years on other commissions as
Yes.
well, so.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. We've had discussion. We'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Next on the list is I'll motion to accept the resignation of Thomas Mitchell, formerly of 15 Welch Road, as an alternate on the Quinnipiac Valley Health District Board of Directors, term to expire June 30th, 2020.
I'll second.
All right. My understanding is this young man has moved out of North Haven. So, Tom, we thank you for your service. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And finally, I will make a motion to appoint Roderick Ryan Williams, 20 Lancelot Drive, North Haven, Connecticut, to the Planning and Zoning Commission as an alternate to fill the vacancy of Edward M. Homa, term to expire December 1st, 2021. And in support of my motion, I'm sure both of you gentlemen have had the opportunity to review Mr. Williams's impressive resume, and I think he would be certainly qualified. He's been an attorney in many capacities in municipalities, and I think he would be a good fit as an alternate, so I fully endorse this appointment.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I didn't have a chance, unfortunately, to look at his resume, but I would agree with Sally's comments that he's had considerable experience, from a legal standpoint, and I think would be a very good addition to the Planning and Zoning Commission as an alternate. So I would second Sally's motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Item number 8.
Bond releases. And I always forget, we have to do these individually? Yes. Okay. I'll make a motion for the bond release number I-11-10, 1405 to 1415 Hartford Turnpike. Original bond, $15,000. Release entire bond balance of $5,000 with the recommendation of the Inland Wetlands Commission.
All right, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Next item is bond number I-16-06 for 409 Washington Avenue. Original bond, $150,000. Release the entire bond balance in the amount of $150,000 with the recommendation of the Inland Wetlands Commission.
All right. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Yeah, I don't have the information on 409 Washington Avenue. I have two packets of 229 State Street, which, so I never got that. So can I just look at this really
sure.
quickly? Because this was not included in my packet. Okay. Right, so yes, I'll second the release on 409 Washington Avenue. Did you have it? Did you?
It's in the back, this pack
Right.
right here, yeah.
Yeah, I know, I looked through it all. I had one of them twice, so I think it just, I got one thing twice and this one not at all, so, but I've looked at it now, so
Okay.
I'm fine.
All right.
I felt some obligation to look at it before voting
Of course,
on it.
yeah, that's fine. All right, so we have a motion, and is there a second?
Second.
Second, all right. Any other discussion, Bill? Sally?
No.
All right, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'll move for the bond release for bond number I-19-02, 2222 Ridge Road. Original bond, $3,500. Release entire bond balance in the amount of $3,500 with the recommendation of the Inland Wetlands Commission.
All right, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right, any
Sally's
other,
motion.
any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
And then the last one on the list is bond number 17-01, 29 State Street. The original bond is $5,086. Release entire bond balance in the amount of $5,086 with the recommendation of the Inland Wetlands Commission.
I just want to confirm, we have the right address on this? Did you see my confusion?
Yes, I just saw it, right?
This says 229 State, but the bond release inspection form says 29, so this must be a typo.
I think we'll have to go with the bond release form. unless-
Yeah.
Yep,
Well, right, the inspection
the
form.
inspection form, right.
Right, but you see how,
Yep.
you see the difference, so I just wanted to make sure we're following the rules correctly and
Right.
releasing the bond on the proper property. So it looks like it is, here it says it again, so
Right.
I feel confident it's 29.
Okay.
So I will, where are we? Did
You
Bill?
made a motion, right? there?
I'll second for 29 State Street.
All right. We have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion? All right. Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, item number 9.
I'll move that we accept the property tax refunds reflected in item 9 of our agenda.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second Sally's motion.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Item number 10, our next meeting here, the Board of Selectmen, is Thursday, November 7th at 7 p.m. here at the top floor of Memorial Town Hall. With that being said, now we're on item number 11. We're at the point, ladies and gentlemen, public comment.
Nancy Barrett, Crestview Drive. I just have more of an observation that I'd like to call to this board's attention, and I'm certainly open to any discussion or suggestions about this, but something that I've noticed that is applicable not just to this Board of Selectmen, but I've seen it in the Board of Finance and as well as with the Board of Education. It seems to me, sitting out in the audience, sometimes there are times that board members are being asked to vote on specific agenda items, and sometimes they just seem to be presented with information either just prior to the meeting or sometimes even during a meeting. And to me, that seems like it's a disservice both to the board members as well as certainly to the people of North Haven. So last month, I mean, these, little bond release errors and omissions, that's completely separate. I'm more referring to last month, the volunteer firefighters tax abatement, for example. It seemed to me that both Bill and Sally were given the packets kind of just before the meeting, and they were asked to read this big stack of information during the actual Board of Selectmen meeting, and it just seemed to me that is kind of a disservice both to them as well as to the people of North Haven. And then again tonight, it sounds like you both were kind of looking for this purchase and sale agreement and all the schedules and the deed associated with the actual open space purchase. So I'm just wondering if there's any way that the Board of Selectmen can actually be receiving information further in advance of the actual meeting, just because I think that you need time to both process the information and then be able to formulate questions if you have them, and then be able to use that information in order to vote based on information. And so I'm not blaming anyone, I'm just making an observation. And again, I've seen this on the Board of Finance and the Board of Education, and I know that in speaking with board members on the Board of Education, for example, sometimes it can be very frustrating for them to have to get up on camera and be flipping through documents and then have to make a motion and vote on a motion when they're not really even sure of all of the background information. So again, it's just an observation.
All right, so I would, after listening to that, a lot
Sure.
of times we don't get the information until Wednesday afternoon.
Sure.
Whatever information.
Right,
So
right.
The
we-
alternative then is it has to wait a whole nother month
Yes.
until the next meeting, so we're trying to move government forward.
Right, so, but with that being said, that's exactly what we try to do. Val sometimes doesn't post the agenda, she doesn't get the information until 4 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon, which is the day before, which is, as long as it's 24 hours in advance. However, at any point in time, if any of the board members here or the Board of Finance feel that they don't have enough information or they haven't read it, they have an opportunity to make a motion to table it till the next meeting, and we'll be more than happy to do that.
I see. Okay.
So,
All right.
we're always willing to do that.
Right. I'm just surprised that I don't hear that more often, and I think people that are serving on these boards may, again, I haven't served on a board, so I don't know, but they might feel pressured to, move forward and move government forward and not be the one that holds up the line.
We would never
So-
stifle someone saying, I haven't had a chance to really digest this, can we
Right.
table this? And we would always respect that.
Right. Well, I know that Sally was asked to read through that whole, document last month, and Bill the same. And it just seemed like it was a lot of information, and it was important. It was the firefighters, tax abatement, which I wholly support, and I think it's a very important program, but I'm sure had a lot of, legal jargon that was, supporting it.
And your comments were all taken, like even tonight, like for Mr. Williams, who we appointed as an alternate.
Sure.
I had
That's
not had
another
a
example.
chance to, previous to tonight. Sally knows the gentleman, obviously, and said some very nice things about him, and, I took a second to slow things down so I could
I think that's
take
important.
a quick look at
I
his
think that's
resume as
important.
well, which was impressive. So.
Right.
So I think at least, on other occasions, sometimes I think there's some technical issues too, like the purchase. I think Sally's comments were very good about the purchase and sale agreement, which I think we got today. I just happened to check my email before I came over so I could see it, and it was pretty simple. But what I think you couldn't send over which actually was very helpful, was the map. Because it was this big, and I'm not sure it was scannable or available or whatever. So that actually, I think we slowed it down to look at the map.
Sure.
So, but I think you're.
Yeah, again, I'm not trying to point any fingers of blame. It's more just I'm trying to help board members to do their job in a way that best serves the people of North Haven. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you so
Try to
much.
slow it down too, so that we can.
Yeah.
So that, if we're not sure, we can make sure we take a second look at something.
I think that's very important to do. Thank you again.
And to Nancy's point,
I think it's a good point.
so, I agree with her. Sometimes we can, think on our feet, or the document isn't that long, and we could, like with Mr. Williams's resume, I know him, but I didn't know everything in that resume, but, you could look for 45 seconds and get a great, feel for the quality of the proposed person for the position and make an informed decision. But to Nancy's point, I can remember one particular time, I don't know if you remember, Mike, it was the time we were talking about the Amazon project, and we had some easels set up with maps here, and we were talking about, accepting the road, and there was a lot of environmental maps, and we got that information. When I say we, I'm talking Mr. Doheny and I was up till about 3 o'clock in the morning reading hundreds of pages of documents, and I had to give up because I had to go to sleep. So there are times when I think Ms. Barrett's point is well taken, but we do our best, and we can try to request information in a more timely fashion, so we do have the opportunity to give it careful thought before we meet and discuss it. But sometimes we are able to think on our feet and get through it.
Right.
But you're absolutely right. Sometimes we could use more time.
Right. I'm just saying that perhaps the standard shouldn't be to just get through it, but the standard should be to really do, the very best job that you can, which means more time,
All
right?
So the option is always that we can
Right.
make a motion to table an item that requires more contemplation, okay?
And she's right. Last month, when Bill said, well, Sally, why don't you read it now? And so I'm reading, and I know the camera's running and everybody, it's like, oh,
You didn't.
am I reading it? But I got through it. But it's not.
You got through it.
Yeah, but I think Ms. Barrett raises a legitimate observation. She goes to a lot of meetings, so she is in good standing to
Yeah,
make an
I've seen it
observation.
on a lot of boards, so
Yes,
you're not
she-
alone.
So
Okay.
we'll get through the best we can. But
Excellent.
we
Okay.
appreciate the observation. Sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, we'll call for adjournment.
I'll motion to adjourn.
All right, second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you in November. Thank you.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the Town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.